Hello, good evening. How's everybody doing tonight? My name is Steve Farrington, and I am a writer, self-published so far, and I've written Rodrigo's Land, and now I'm also working on a new novel called Leonardo's Letter, and it's basically just a letter that Leonardo da Vinci was writing to his lover, so it's gay historical fiction. So I would like to read a little bit from it, and I would love to have you folks give me some comments in the comment section if you have any suggestions, if you have any feedback or whatever. Also, if you like my work, you can go ahead and support me by subscribing to my page and also subscribing to my channel. Maybe purchasing Rodrigo's Land through Amazon. Also, there's the e-reader, and you can get it through Kindle. Okay, so anyway, this is Leonardo's letter, and I'm going to just start at the beginning, and you can let me know what you think. Okay. Okay, here goes. Leonardo's Letter, a novel by Stephen Farrington. It starts off with a quote. Time stays long enough for anyone who will use it. Leonardo da Vinci. I'm just going to be reading off my computer here, okay? Important note, the following was found, along with a left-to-right copy, presumably copied by Leonardo da Vinci's assistant, Francesco Melzi, between the pages of an old book in a library in Tours, France. Amboise, France, 1518. Dear Cecco, I have hesitated too long in the writing of these memoirs. As such, I think it would be easier if I consider this a kind of letter to you, amore mio, at least at the beginning. Though you know and love your Leo well, and have for years, there are secrets of my heart and depths of my mind that you still do not quite understand. I presume to think you would like to plumb these, especially since you have been urging me for years to put quill to paper and write such a thing. Where to start? Who is, after all, Leonardo da Vinci? Or rather, who was he? I was one of the greatest minds of my time, despite my many flaws. I painted and designed things of which I am immensely proud. I once diverted a river. I served dukes, kings, and popes. I flew to great heights, then came crashing down like a crippled bird. I am physically ruined, can barely walk, and my right arm no longer moves. Where once there was youthful beauty and charm, there is now only decay, and my once lovely face has been ravaged by time. I am haunted by the nightmare of destructive floods. I am racked both by torturous pain and the wrenching sadness that comes from inhabiting a body that no longer works. I was pursued by a lifelong enemy who nearly defeated me. I fear that life has lost its meaning, and that mine has had very little. I am in exile. And yet, my mind remains sharp. My left arm, the most important one, yet obeys me, and I still have things to say and do. I can walk a bit. I am, somehow and against all odds, still here. And, miracle of miracles, I have you, my dear Cecco, at my side both day and night. One thing I wish to make clear, to anyone who might one day peruse these pages, is that compiling the story of my life was not my idea. Of course, it was, rather, that of Francesco, my disciple, my closest companion and dearest friend, for whom I am writing this. He is the best loved and eccentric old man such as I could ever desire. And now that my great enemy is gone, or so I believe, I deem it safe finally to put quill to paper and record these thoughts. My enemy. He tried to destroy me, to crush the great Leonardo. But I was not to be broken, and I am not to be trifled with, even in this sorry state, this late into the autumn of my life. When have you ever known me to surrender or admit defeat? No. Not then, not now, not ever. Despite the rumors, there has been only one man I truly hated, whose name I refuse to use. More on him later. For now, I would like to dispel a rumor, that of my hatred of Michelangelo Buonarroti. Let me be frank. Michelangelo was merely a pest, an amateur rival barely worthy of mention. I am a man of love and expansive, almost limitless and universal kindness. It takes a special kind of evil to make me hate someone. Despite everything that happened, that foolish sculptor generated no such enmity. Part of me almost feels sorry for him and wishes him success in the Vatican where he currently resides. Of course, on the other hand, there have been only two men I have ever truly loved, both, amusingly enough, named Francesco. One was a kind bachelor uncle who showed me great affection and taught me all he could about the world. The other is you, my dearest one, who have made my later years more wonderful than I could have ever have imagined. It must be said, however, to any future reader, that is, if Cecco allows this to be seen, I am likely to abandon this project. Why deny it? I am old now, and I am fully aware of my own faults. I am not only an incorrigible procrastinator, but I often fail to follow through with projects that I do start. Francesco, my Cecco, you have challenged me to stick to this task, which you have been needling me to undertake for years, with the argument that a record of my life deserves to be shared with the world. What care I for such things? I am incapable of success, even when I try to create something important. I endeavored once to bring forth a great painting in Milan that would inspire all people, a dismal failure that will soon slip into oblivion. Most of what I have attempted has been a pathetic disappointment, at least to me. I accept my fate. Instead of changing the world, I would now be content just to leave its stage with a shred of dignity. I am not one of those pathetic blowhards who write reams of nonsense and inflict their endless expertise and tiresome reflections on anyone who will read or listen. I freely admit that I do not care a whit about such things. I have grown rebellious and uncooperative, like a boy of 15. Francesco accuses me of being an unrepentant curmudgeon ever since our move to this northern place, where the sun's warmth is a far cry from Tuscany's, and where I pass my final days, wandering by the river, as a guest of the King of France. The peasants here must think me a curious sight. Sometimes I wonder if everyone here thinks I waste my time, as well as that of the king. At times, I catch people whispering about how I spend my final days badly, stubbornly refusing to put my genius and talents to good use. When Francesco says such things, I gently remind him that I still fill the pages of my notebooks with all manner of calculations, sketches, and reflections, and continue to work on my unfinished masterpiece, the one I carry with me everywhere, the lovely Lisa with a smile tugging at her lips. What I mean to say is that I still have things to do and much to learn. Ancora imparo, as some old men in Florence like to say, and it is true, because I am still learning new things. Learning never exhausts the mind, after all. Part of me suspects that I could drop dead tomorrow, and then another part wonders if, as my great enemy was somehow able to do, I could live even further into an absurd old age. Of course, as much as I prattle on about my bitterness and bad temper, I suppose I fool no one. My great enemy was one who seemed powered by a stubborn, cynical, despicable hatred, and, yes, I will say it, by evil. In short, he was too mean to die. I am not such a man. I imagine that I will pass with a beatific smile on my lips. Life well spent is long, and mine has been both. As I often say, I love those who can smile in trouble, who can gather strength from distress, and grow brave by reflection. I have smiled and laughed much in my mad life, have tried to grow stronger because of what I have overcome, and I hope that this time of reflection will allow me to grow braver as I prepare to meet my Maker, the thought of which, if I am being honest, scares me if you will pardon the pun, half to death. But, you may ask, what of the task at hand? Alas, what everyone eventually learns about me, and that you, Checo, know best, is that when I do or learn something new, usually through trial and error, experiencia docet is my motto, I do it for myself and to satisfy my own pantheist love of variety. This is, of course, why I left a checkered pattern of incomplete projects in my wake over the decades. I have a thirst for knowledge, a love of learning that far exceeds any other ambition. That is why, even at this advanced age, Checo, you usually need to coax me to bed after an evening of reading and writing. I am simply too interested in my numerous projects to be bogged down by any one project, and I always have been. I have often thought that people in my life should be impressed with how little I have changed, instead of acting frustrated by my wondrous consistency. It is not as if my character is of any great surprise by now. That is enough for one night. Perhaps I will write more tomorrow. Chapter 2, The Garden of Vinci. Shall I tell of my early years in and around Vinci? Of the dew on the grass of the orchards surrounding my grandfather's home, and the apple tree I used to love to climb? How innocent and free my childhood was. I could write page after page about how I used to run naked through the fields and swim in the stream at the bottom of a ravine, how I nearly broke my neck as I slipped on a rock while trying to catch mayflies as a child. It is true, I used to climb the hills and mountains around Vinci and Anciano as a child, which kept me from studying. My father hired an ancient monk to tutor me, but the old man gave up trying to force knowledge into me after a while. Once he told me about the Great Flood, the one that had destroyed the world. Once he told me about the Great Flood, the one that had destroyed the world, I refused to learn any more from him. I was haunted by bad dreams after that, and I would hide when I saw him coming to give me my lessons, sometimes in a closet in Uncle Francesco's alcove. Francesco was 15 years my senior, and he often appeared more like an older brother than an uncle. He sometimes seemed to me the man my father could have been had he had a sense of humor and been blessed with a tender heart. He always showed me kindness and always encouraged my adventurous nature. The world was mine to explore, and my uncle my favorite teacher. He used to sit with me in the green meadows, and the two of us would examine lizards, plants, and insects together. Once we even dissected a dead frog to see how it looked on the inside. He helped me collect moths and butterflies, and we examined their bodies together. Once they were pinned to a small wooden board he gave me. He told me that all of nature was God's expression of love toward man, his greatest creation. He told me that, since the hills were clad in the most beautiful wildflowers, these were the finest clothes in the whole world. An important thing to know about me as a boy was that I had a fascination with swirls, twirls, and spirals of all kinds. I can remember the first time I peered into a small pool beside a stream and took notice of my own wondrous curls and their golden color. I know, Checo, you will no doubt think me a vain and vile narcissist, but we had no mirror in my mother's home, and I was enchanted not only by my own reflection, but also by the curves and lines I saw framing my face. What caused my blonde locks to be so curly, while those of my mother were straight and honey brown? Soon I found myself studying the eddies in the nearby stream, fascinated by the way the energy of the water bounced and played off the stones and rocks, and how the patterns seemed ever-changing. I wanted to understand the mysteries of this world, both large and small. Luckily, since very little was expected of me, nature was, in a way, my childhood classroom. I often thank God I had the good luck to be born a bastard, and thus denied the tedium of following in my father's footsteps as a notary. Although we never spoke of it, I suspect that Father was relieved to pass me off to my master Verrocchio as soon as my voice began to change, instead of going to the trouble of legitimating the whelp he had sired with a lowly peasant girl. But I suppose I am getting ahead of myself. Cecco urges me to create a chronological narrative, but he, above all others, knows that I cannot keep to a plan unless I choose to do so. I think that perhaps I will instead simply write thematically, jumping from one topic to another, and hope that Cecco or another reader can piece together a linear narrative of my life, if that is what he desires. I find this entire exercise silly, as not only do I waste my time with this, but I hate the idea of having my dear one wasting his time recopying my left-handed scrawl in a way that others could read it. What others, I never tire of asking him. In 20 years' time, no one will even remember who Leonardo da Vinci was. But then, Cecco tells me, I should stop indulging in false modesty, claiming that I know very well how much I may be remembered. I am not being false, however. I have no doubts about my own worth, but I do doubt how little my fellow men value such things, excepting perhaps the fortunate few owners of works I was able to complete, and a small number of friends and lovers. Lovers. Oh yes, that ticklish subject. Not that I care for my reputation, mind you. The rumors have followed me like a stench since the first accusation of wrongdoing when I was barely more than a youth in Florence in the year of grace 1476. Luckily, my enemy, the one who almost got me killed, is finally, almost certainly, no longer a threat. But more on him later. Even though I never pretended to be that which I am not, is it wrong of me to urge my dear Francesco to bury these scribblings? Perhaps he could hide them in a library, or slide them between the papers of some forgotten dusty folio. At least for a while, that is. I suppose that, if one were to find this manuscript some day, hopefully long after I am gone, whatever is left of my essence or soul shall regard with amusement the scandalized faces of its eventual readers. In any case, Cecco has urged me to be candid about the details of my life, promising to handle this tale with the utmost discretion for a time if I so desire. If this even turns into anything, that is. Perhaps I will persist. I must confess that the idea of recounting my storied life, like my youthful peering into the monster cave of the Tuscan countryside, fills me with fear and, if truth be told, a small bit of joy, a tickle of delicious excitement. And so, my dear Cecchino, it appears that you will get your wish. I will indeed pour my heart into these frivolous pages, at least for now. Unless, as you and I both suspect may happen, I lose interest and follow a different passion altogether. Or if my health takes a turn for the worse. After all, it is clear to anyone watching that my body is shutting down. How much longer can I possibly have? All right, folks, that's the first 4.5 pages of my novel that I've been working on called Leonardo's Letter. I would love to hear some feedback in the comment section. If you can go ahead and subscribe and also like and share this video, I'd like to get some interest going and hopefully, just get some people watching. Again, my name is Steve Farrington. I live in Rochester, New York, and I am a gay historical fiction writer. I'm actually a professor in a community college, but I'm just writing as a hobby, basically. And I was able to publish years ago, self-publishing Rodrigo's Land, so you can check that out. If you Google Rodrigo's Land, it'll come right up on Amazon. All right. Anyway, folks, thanks a lot. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. And if you want to hear more, give me some comments in the comment section. And if you have any suggestions or if you have any ideas or anything at all, any feedback at all, just put it in the comment section. I appreciate it. Thanks for listening. Good night. Bye.